So the deadline is coming up for UCAS personal statements. What do you need to write? In this video, I thought I would talk through my top tips for you for writing your UCAS personal statement. I've written successful personal statements for English and Sports Science at Loughborough University, for a Masters in Public Health at Newcastle University, and a PhD in Public Health at the University of Cambridge. So I'm really hoping I can bring some value and comfort for you in this very, very stressful time. So in this video, I'm gonna crack open my personal statement from UCAS from way back in 2016. I was so young. And my 5 universities that I chose were Loughborough University, the University of Leeds, the University of Aberdeen, University of St Andrews, and Durham University. But before we get into it, I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Cameron and I make student life videos. And I've decided to post them onto YouTube. So if you are new to the channel, then please consider subscribing because it is free and you can always change your mind after the video. Enjoy. So, oh my gosh, here is my personal statement. I wrote this way back in 2016, so it has been a very long time since I have seen this. So the first thing that I should say with my personal statement was that it was a huge challenge to tailor this personal statement for all the courses that I want to apply for. This is because I applied to a bunch of dual honours degrees. So I applied to English and Sports Science at Loughborough University, I applied to English and Sociology at Aberdeen and Leeds, I did English and History at Durham and English and Psychology at St Andrews, and my primary target was English and Sports Science at Loughborough University, which is the one that I got and it was my first choice. So I made a strong effort to try and target this, but we'll get into that in a bit. So I think writing your personal statement can be broken down into 4 categories. You can think of it as the hook, the examples, the application, and delivering. So the hook, it's your chance to introduce yourself, to explain the motivation for studying your course, and to demonstrate your understanding of it. The best personal statements always get to the point very quickly. You want to go straight in. What excites you about the course, and why do you want to learn more about it? This at the top here was my hook. I recently read Diary by Chuck Palahniuk. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. And this quote resonated. The goal isn't to live forever, the goal is to create something that will. In my mind, this line perfectly encapsulates the creative urge and purpose of literature. So boom, I've given an example straight away of something that I've read recently, and I've said why it is important for English. And I've explained sort of the relevance of that quote to the overall field of English as well. I think the most challenging thing about this part is the time that you allocate to yourself to craft the absolute perfect sentence that will destroy everyone else's chance of getting into the course as well. But I wouldn't overthink it massively because it is just the start of the statement. But obviously you want to take time to think about it as well. If you are doing something like English, then find a quote that works. Say something that you've been reading and why you enjoy it. If you're doing something like medicine, explain what attracts you to medicine. But you want to talk about the overall field. You want to say why you're interested in this subject as a whole, because after all, you're going to be studying the entire thing of it. So the next step is you want to write about why you want to study that course. And here it's a little bit tricky for me. So as I spoke about, I applied to do a dual honours degree, English and another subject. But then how do you tailor that the best way? So the short answer is with great difficulty. Your interest in the course is the biggest thing that you're looking at in this personal statement. You obviously want to show off your achievements, but you also want to show why you're interested in it. So you want to start with a short sentence that captures the reason why you're interested in studying in the subject area and then communicate your enthusiasm for it. So it's much better to engage UCAS with something that's interesting, relevant, specific, and current in your opening lines. So you want to maybe start with something that's inspiring you now, what inspired you when you were 6. So with that in mind, I talked about how I was doing the International Baccalaureate programme. And the idea behind this is that the IB promotes breadth and discourages specialism, and I wanted to continue this approach at university. So that sort of talks straight away about why I wanted to do a dual honours degree. Then I get into a bit more about the English. So I've always enjoyed writing since I was really young. I had a poem published in a young writer's anthology, and English has always been the subject that I enjoyed most. And then talked about some other activities quickly and how I enjoyed linking these activities with my academic studies. So while I am trying to focus it on the English side, because all of the courses that I applied to had English, it was also important to show why I wanted to do dual honours. So I haven't really specified the English and sports science per se yet. I wanted to make sure the personal statement was still applicable to, all of the other universities that I was applying for. So now we want to show off a little bit. It's example time. So because my priority was Loughborough University, I talked about, what I was doing while I was in high school sports-wise. So, I played football from a young age. I then managed a team in the Netherlands. I talked about how through that coaching I was learning, the psychology behind making a team play well together effectively, as well as improving my ability to develop individual and team strengths for, the best outcome that I can. So then that talked about examples that I was doing in sports, and again, trying to link that as best as I could to the course itself. So now the additionals. So you want to talk here about all of the extra things that you have been doing that can support your statement. In an ideal world, these will all be relevant to the one degree that you are applying for. That might not necessarily be the case though at this age. So, I talked about how I organise, a school charity football tournament. I talked about how many people attended it, the exact amounts of money that it raised, but also that I did this talent show and I developed, my public speaking skills because I was, one of the two hosts. So again, linking that back to English as best as I can, recognising that I will have to, deliver presentations and, that applies to every other degree you'll be doing basically. There will always be some sort of public speaking and presentation aspect of your grading system. So again, some more additionals. I talked about my community and service trip to Cambodia where I taught English to local kids. I then talked about, the methods that I would teach English to these kids, how music was a much more effective tool than just talking, and then sort of spoke about some more examples, so recognising that music can aid and augment communication. I then wrote my IB extended essay on the impact of JFK's vision on America and the development of music on 1960s. So again, that kind of addresses that English and history degree that I wanted to apply to at Durham University, so I could capture that as best as I could by using an example that tied in with English as well. So then I talked about how, like my extended essay, my favourite books had this sort of strong historical component, educating as well as entertaining. So I talked about how I really liked The Great Gatsby, which I knew was a book that was taught in Loughborough University as well, and then gave some specific examples from the actual book itself. I also talked about my personal project, which was a number of years ago, but I wrote a short novel about the impact of drugs on an athlete's career, inspired by, the worldwide media response to the Lance Armstrong drug scandal. So here I sort of said that, writing a novel connected with this historical event, and that was a good opportunity to relate context with literature. Again, some more additionals just to, eat up that character count and to really show off. So I talked about how I performed and acted and sung solo in the school play for the last few years, and again, I looked at this relationship between literature and further art forms, and then talked about how music in conjunction with literature enhances the underlying message of a work. And again, talked about some more examples, how living abroad, I also learned Dutch, learned how cultural context, traditions and preferences affect a nation's literature. Talked about how those are components that I wanted to study in university, and obviously how, the expression and delivery of language are fundamental, and that's why I registered for the TEDx Youth event in Eindhoven, again hoping to improve my public speaking skills and the ability to argue ideas, which is, vital in an English degree. So now for the final part, delivery. Now we want to have a good ending to tie everything together really nicely. We want to do 3 things as part of this as well. We want to tie it back to everything that we've written earlier. We want to talk about the future, and we want to think about our overall university experience. But remember, all of these universities will see your personal statement, so you want to keep this really general rather than being specific about one university. So don't like name module titles or specific module leaders. So in my one, I basically said what I wanted to go to university for. I thought it was really important so I could practice writing because I said I wanted to do journalism at the time. Yeah. Certainly doing that these days. Oh, 2016 Cameron was a very different person. And then I talked about the dual honours degree thing again. So I talked about, again, how a degree education will offer greater flexibility and opportunities for future personal development. So again, nice and clear, punchy, short, don't overthink that bit too much. Again, you want to tie everything together, maybe give a specific example of a career that you want to pursue that is relevant to what you're wanting to study. Again, this career that you write down doesn't have to be what you actually want to do. It's just so long as the university can see you have something in mind and something to work for, because obviously they want you to study at their university, but they also want you to go into a career that is relevant, so they're not wasting their time as well. So that's it. That was my personal statement. It's really weird seeing how I wrote way back then. It's very different to how I write now, especially, you know, since I've decided to move away from the arts and pursue a career in public health and science. I think my writing ability has also improved since then, and I feel I'm able to be a lot more concise now. Every sort of personal statement that I write is always really challenging, so I applied to a lot of jobs after I was done with my master's. Then obviously for doing my PhD at Cambridge, I wrote another personal statement for that. And again, it's always really challenging to condense all your ideas into one specific nice, tight personal statement. But you'll get there, it's fine. So I think some of the final tips that I would give as part of writing your personal statement is to first of all write it a number of times. And you can also see version 7. That is quite extraordinary. And to let lots of people see it, your friends, your family, your teachers, because a lot of these people will have written statements before and they can give some really good ideas and pointers on what you are writing. So I'd always recommend to try and write your statement at least a week or two before the actual UCAS submission deadline, just so it gives your teachers, friends, families enough time to have a look through the piece of writing that you have done. And I think one of the most important things as well to take away from writing a personal statement is that it is not about how much work experience you have done. It's about how you demonstrate the skills and the insights from the work that you have done, and how you can tie them in and make it relevant to the statement that you are writing. So say one person could have done loads of different charity work and raise loads of money for a bunch of different groups, but if they're not able to harness those in a concrete, effective strategy that applies to the course that they are applying for, they're unlikely to succeed. Well, I mean, if they raise loads of money, then, I mean, that's pretty good too. Whatever. I think one of the other things of how to end a personal statement is to make sure that the admissions team remember you. The overall point of a personal statement is, why should the admissions team pick you specifically? Why should you be offered a place on the course? So if you're wanting to start writing your personal statement, but you don't have a clue of where to start, get an A4 piece of paper and write why I should be admitted onto this course and just list some ideas. Again, you don't have to write anything massively perfect or whatever, just have some ideas that can help guide your writing, and then you'll be on your way. And another little tidbit, don't copy anyone's personal statement. UCAS uses Turnitin, a plagiarism detector, and if you achieve a similarity index of 30% or more, your personal statement will be flagged up and all of the universities will be notified, so don't even think about it. So I'm hoping that that was somewhat useful for you. I'm also hoping to do a video explaining how I wrote my personal statement for my PhD at the University of Cambridge, which I'd argue is slightly better than the one that I have written for this. But if you did enjoy the video and if it was useful for you, then please leave a like and do consider subscribing because it is free and you can always change your mind. I'd like to wish you the best of luck for writing your applications. I know it can be a really tricky thing, but you've got this in the bag And if you have any questions about writing for any specific subject, then feel free to put a comment in the comment section below and I will do my best to get back to you. And until the next video, I wish you luck. See you later.